Personally, I think it should stop.
Really?
I think it should rest for a good while. And having come back once, I think it will come back. Why wouldn't it?
The first thing I would have seen of yours when I was a kid would have been Doctor Who. One of my personal favourite episodes that you wrote is Victory of the Daleks.
To me, it's like a bank holiday Doctor Who. It's Spitfires in space. And I remember the read-through. This is television.
Another great project of yours is, of course, Sherlock. You have such a role in the development, the creation, and the writing, but also, of course, the presentation. You are Mycroft.
Never lies ahead requires brain power, Sherlock.
It got 10 million viewers, and everything changed. And suddenly they were desperate for more, and it was giddying.
And would you say you're an actor who writes or a writer who acts?
I'd say I'm an actor who writes.
We are not gamblers here at the Iron Bank, Lord Tyrell.
I have never seen Game of Thrones. And on the red carpet, they kept saying, who should be on the Iron Throne? And I went, me.
My favourite of the League of Gentlemen characters you play is Les, creme brulee.
It's a shit business.
You'll find out. For the world's we all need a bit of a laugh. You can just have a bit more fun.
At least I won the mums!
I'm afraid that's all we've got time.
We have a small favour to ask all of you. Please, could you check right now if you've clicked the subscribe button? It's one simple, free thing that you could do to help us keep this show free and to keep improving it week after week. So please, double check if you've subscribed. Thank you so much. In lockdown, me and a friend of mine did what we called the Bondathon. Before No Time to Die came out, we watched all. We weren't actually going to watch them all, but we ended up watching all of the Bond films over a year, and we did even the non-Eon ones. We did Casino Royale, and it was one of those things where you watch it, and the '60s is such. Everyone loves the '60s, but like in a pop culture sense. But then you watch Casino Royale, and you're like, do I hate the '60s now? It's like
I think Casino Royale led directly to Charles Manson. There was so much rage. What was did you have an unexpected surprise from your Bondathon?
Good question. I think, I was never a huge Roger Moore fan because I grew up, controversial. So my Bond was Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, but I was surprised at how good Spy Love Me still is.
Masterpiece.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's where everything just comes together.
Totally.
And for what it is, it's perfect.
It's the next stage. It's where they get that version right. Never again. But that's the one, really. I think, for that.
It's like in the ones after, it kind of slid too far one end of the spectrum. Before that, it was still they were kind of riffing on blaxploitation. It was trying to figure out what it was.
I love Live and Let Die. Love it. And I'm very fond of Man with the Golden Gun because it's minor. It wasn't a big success. They were flailing a bit, but Christopher Lee is wonderful. And it's a curiously small film, but I quite like that about it. It's not so kind of grandiose. But Spy Love Me is when it kind of all comes together. But that's because it's a remake of You Only Live Twice.
Yeah, of course.
As we know.
Yeah.
My big surprise when I last watched them was that Tomorrow Never Dies is unquestionably the best of the Pierce Brosnans.
That's what I was going to say was why I was surprised. That
it?
I think is the most underrated Bond
film. It's much better than GoldenEye. I think it is. It's really good. It's really good.
It's really good.
And
we talk about it a lot.
It's much more coherent than I remember. And things like Dr. Kaufman, brilliant. Little funny cameos, and I think it's really good. Yeah. So don't let me forget it, because I will. It's really good.
Yeah, Ricky Jay and Mr. Stamper. We quote Elliot Carver, Geoffrey Price's performance in The Office all the time.
When you've removed Mr. Bond's heart, there may just be time for him to watch it stop beating. It was going to be Hopkins, incredibly.
Are you serious? Was that actually going to be on? Because I didn't know that.
I think he said yes, and then by the time he got the script, it was all pink pages. And he said, "This isn't this film I agreed to do." And he said, "No, sadly."
Wow.
That'd be different, wouldn't it? Wow. I think it's really good.
I think there's just a kind of humour in that film and a playfulness. Like there's a scene I always remember where M is giving Bond his briefing in the back of a MI6 car, and she's got like a brandy, and it's like 11 in the morning, and Judi Dench is just supping back on this brandy and absolutely exuding.
Thanks so much.
I mean, they would call it BDE, big dick energy. They're just exuding this. And for me, that the movie just has so much playfulness to it, but also it's incredible cast, incredible action. You know, it was the one that was the surprise to me as well. It
Isn't
was
it?
me. Yeah.
And that I think the self-driving car is it's superb, that sequence. Brilliant. It's propeller heads, isn't it? Brilliant sequence music. But actually, even though we have self-driving cars, it hasn't dated because it's all about his joy. And when he lets it fly over, possibly killing at least 10 pedestrians, I just love that he goes. He's great.
Yeah.
Very good.
What's your personal favourite Bond film, would you say?
My favourite, the best is From Russia with Love. And my favourite is On Her Majesty's Secret Service for different reasons.
Okay, I'm curious.
It's my favourite for all its imperfections and its strangeness. But From Russia with Love is definitely the best one. It's brilliant, utterly brilliant. I think. Yeah,
that's my favourite. That's why I went because For Russia of Love, we always have arguments in the office about what's the best one, but For Russia of Love, it's like you've got Goldfinger, which is like sets that standard of like action romp for like years, and then you've got From Russia of Love coming up just before, setting the sort of the spy espionage thriller template of the series for like years. Those two pillars.
It's a bit like Citizen Kane. You have to avoid perversely choosing the other. You know, Goldfinger is fucking brilliant, but I just prefer From Russia with Love because it's smaller, tighter, and more spy-y. I love the spyness of it, you know.
And Robert Shaw, he has. So it wasn't until I watched it again.
Very fit, Nash.
He doesn't have any dialogue until like 2/3 of the film. I didn't realise that because at the Prince Charles Cinema they showed all of them on 4K, so I got to see it on a big screen.
Wow.
And that opening title sequence for Sure of Love, all analog with the belly dance, it still looks amazing.
There's so much to learn, and it's not learned. You know, Dr. No doesn't appear until 3/4 of the way of the film. But like the Iceman, he's talked about constantly. And then when he appears, sit down. It's magic. And then Joseph Wiseman comes on and shows everyone how to do it for 50 years. And it doesn't matter how much screen time he's got. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And why is whilst we're on, because I have to ask, why is On Her Majesty's Secret Service your personal favourite?
I think because it's the best directed. Score, it's the best score. I love all the snow stuff. I love it because Lazenby is so uncertain. And if Connery had done it, when he is visibly bored in You Only Live Twice, it wouldn't be the same film. And obviously he's not really an actor, but there are bits which are very affecting. Dino Rick's fantastic. Telly Savalas is the best Blofeld by 100 miles. It's wonderful. And it's sad. It's so strangely melancholy, isn't it? I just love it to death. Hello. Have we started?
I guess we have.
I'm afraid that's all we've got time.
Yeah. Are you enjoying this episode? Are you itching for new Half the Pitch content to come out? Then join the rest of our members. You'll get access to our episodes 48 hours earlier than everyone else, with full Pitch members getting this too, and extended cuts that no one else gets to see. So, if you want to support the show, get these Half the Pitch member benefits. Click join right now.
But I'm not being perverse, but he's no. They thought they could just get another Connery, and then Connery was properly able to say, "Well, look what's happened." But it's awful that it did make a lot of money. It's just this awful thing is sort of dismissed. But now, of course, it's completely
so many people love
around.
it. Christopher Nolan and Steven Soderbergh.
I just saw the Odyssey at the weekend, and I was surprised by how weird it is. I was thrilled. It's a weird film. The practical effects fantastic. It's a curious thing. The pigs, I love that, but it's absolutely not a shred of laughs in it. Not a shred. And it's always like that, isn't it? Grey-faced, somber. And I thought, how come it's got 375 locations and they all look the same? All the coastlines. Was it Scotland? Looked like Scotland. Then it definitely wasn't, but it still looked like Scotland. Curiously small film for a huge film.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it. But what really struck me was there were 3 trailers with it for The Uprising, which is about Wat Tyler, Werewolf, and The Death of Robin Hood, which all appeared to be in the same muddy medieval world. And I thought, where's all the joy gone? There's no. We're a long way from Errol Flynn here, but there was like, fucking, I'm sick. And it once would have been my absolute meat and drink. Anything grim and medieval, I'm sick to death of it. Want a bit of colour. And the Odyssey, despite everything, was still basically an orange and teal film, wasn't it?
There was a lot of that in there.
That's the end of my TED talk.
Well, I remember you saying something similar, actually, just linking that in.
Very quiet. He doesn't agree. Yeah. Good. Go on.
You're amongst friends here. No, I remember you saying something similar actually about Bond with Brett Goldstein, where you said like Bond has been very serious for a long time now, and in good films and not so good films. And maybe what we need now is and maybe just even more broadly beyond Bond is an injection of some of that humour.
The world's fucked. We all need a bit of a laugh, don't we? And it's like it doesn't have to be silly. You don't have to have a tiger hunt with Barbara Woodhouse. You can just have a bit more fun, and that's what and I'm afraid to say I don't think Denis Villeneuve and Stephen Knight are the people who are going to provide so many laughs. I'm afraid it's going to be Craig 2.0, that is.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same. I think my expectation is it'll be like a really good, solid one-off film, because Denis Villeneuve, I think he's made some great stuff, and I think he'll do a good job, but then I don't know where it will go next after that.
Well, possibly to another auteur, but in terms of, my fear, like Star Wars, they'll just bleed it to death. There'll be a Moneypenny spin-off, there'll be a Q spin-off, there'll be young James Bond. Before you know it, it won't feel special at all, and everyone will be sick to death of it. That's the cash model, unfortunately, isn't it?
Yeah, the capitalist model. I feel
and also because Jeff Bezos is a Bond villain, what do they do?
Yeah. He even looks a bit like Blofeld, doesn't he?
They all look like Bond villains.
Yeah, I think that's happened to a lot of different franchises in the last 10 years. Star Wars being the most notable one. Then it does become a cash cow inevitably.
Never give people what they want.
Give them what they need. Is that what the artist is supposed to do? Not what they want, what they need. I remember Alan Moore once said that about give people what they need and don't realize they don't realize what they need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with your work then, because you've had so far you've had a really busy year. You made your RSC debut. You've got Bookish season 2 coming out. Do you like being busy?
I do like being busy, yes. I find it hard not to be, but not, I hope, in a kind of workaholic way. It's just, I think, I went to see Cher a few years ago, and I'm not the same age. And she said, she's like 77 or something. And there she was on stage. She said, let me just say this. What's your granny doing tonight? I was very taken by that. But it's not really that. Noel Coward said, work is so much more fun than fun. And I think that's true. I like to have fun through work, I suppose. But sometimes it gets a bit crazy. It's a bit crazy. At the moment, I've just finished shooting the Bookish Christmas special, and we start shooting the 3rd series in November.
Wow.
And I'm still working on the scripts, and I've got a couple of months essentially free, but they're not free. But sometimes it's a bit much, and then other times it works out really nice, really evenly, But them's the breaks.
How do you relax when you're not working?
I do podcasts almost relentlessly. I paint a bit and I swim. I used to run, but I've done my knee in. And I've fallen back in love comprehensively with swimming. So I swim a lot now. I like it. It's good for you.
I'm a big fan of swimming.
But I do. I'm getting into everything. Just as I did with running, you start getting into the stuff, don't you? So I'm now investigating this stuff to take away the panda eyes, and also you have to put stuff on your skin because you're constantly exposed to chlorine. I think it'll be like some sort of Marvel thing. I'll become like Chlorine Man from being exposed. But I like the paraphernalia that goes with it, I suppose. It's fun.
Do you swim with earplugs?
No, I can't do that. I tried. Because it does bother me because it gets in. But I tried and it's like I felt I was suffocating. I could hear my breathing and I couldn't do it. I'd wax ones like the Argon, like the Odyssey. And I just pulled them out after like 2 lengths. I thought, oh God. So I've never tried that again. Do you?
Oh yeah, I find I have to because I've got my dad's ears and he has very sort of.
Does he know?
I've told him many times. Yes, I've bollocked him many times.
Hear.
And he is they're easily irritated, so I have to have the whole works, earplugs, ear calm, all that crap.
Have you tried? You can listen to music now with thing you can press to your skull.
No, I didn't. You mean like a little clip
Yes.
thing? Oh, is that what those are?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know. I did.
It's exciting.
Oh, that's cool. But yeah, looking back at your work, I mean, I was always a fan, but looking back at it in the run-up to this chat, I mean, there's so much and you've done so much. And, you know, of course, you've written, you've acted, you've presented. And would you say, well, I guess the two main areas of, I guess, work, creativity are acting and writing. Would you say that's fair to say?
Yes.
And would you say you're an actor who writes or a writer who acts?
I'd say I'm an actor who writes. I think that's how I'd like to think of myself. Acting's still my favourite thing. I'm always asked the deathless question, which do you prefer? But it sort of depends. I love the control of writing in a way, you know what I mean? Because it's just, you're forging a world, it's just you sitting there or you and your collaborator sitting there, whatever. But also I love then getting out from the house and doing a play and stuff. So it's a difficult, I don't know, unless someone held a gun to my head, I wouldn't like to choose, because it's the variety that's kept me interested and going, and also provides always has an awful lot of job opportunities. You know, I am, when I was first starting out, I was quite unusual in that I wrote a lot of stuff, like the rest of the League of Gentlemen. But now it's almost like a prerequisite. It would be odd if young actors weren't also working on producing their own shorts or writing screenplays. It's good, and I always used to say, you know, you'd have to wait for the phone to ring, or not as much, because if you're producing stuff, constantly creating stuff, then it broadens your horizons, you know. So it's definitely become more common now.
Would you say that's your number one piece of advice for a young actor, is to write and to produce and create your own work?
No, not necessarily, because not everyone wants to or can. It's just, but the creative act, I think, is a huge part of it. The late Sam Neill did a wonderful video during lockdown about mental health for actors. You know, and it's like saying if you're a plumber and you're not fixing pipes, you're still a plumber. But if you're an actor and not acting, what are you? And I think it was very affecting, that, and I think some kind of creativity is crucial. Also, massively important to have something to feed off. So if you're an unemployed actor, don't sit at home staring at the wall and waiting for the phone to ring, because it mostly won't. But if you're doing something else, you give off a different energy. You can talk about things. When you come into an audition and someone says, what have you been up to? Don't tell them the truth. But even if it's just what your journey was like, be positive. It comes off people in waves, I think, in my experience. So I would just recommend people do stuff.
Keep busy. Yeah. So going back to your work, the first thing I would have seen of yours when I was a kid, and I mentioned this briefly, I think, when we were coming in, but would have been Doctor Who, of course.
When you were a kid?
When I was a kid. I'm so sorry. I always feel guilty saying this when people are fun. But yes, when I was a child, I was freaked the hell out by the Unquiet Dead, which was your first episode, Doctor Who, with Chris Eccleston, the Charles Dickens episode with the Gelf. And when we had Stephen Moffat on the podcast recently, I asked him about the excitement he felt when bringing the show back in 2005, because you guys had been lifelong fans, and he was saying how exciting it was bringing the show back in 2005 when he was doing Empty Child. And then for you, of course, also being a lifelong fan, I wanted to ask, like, what are your memories of that time and of bringing back that show and the excitement that you surely must have felt bringing back Doctor Who?
It's hard. It's 20 years ago, but I remember everything about it because it was impossible. I remember I'd just gone to bed, and my friend rang me and said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "No, I'm in bed." He said, "Doctor Who's coming back." I said, "What do you mean?" He went, It is. And it was it. And then there was a great rush of news in like 24 hours. And I never thought it would come back. You probably read this somewhere, but I had a moment of absolute great melancholy about a year before, if that, thinking about it. It's probably the same year, summer of the same year maybe. And I was going on holiday to Ireland, and we got the ferry, and by bizarre coincidence, we drove through a village called Llangollen in Wales, world's largest Doctor Who exhibition. I said, stop the car. And we had hours to kill. And I'd never heard of it. And we went to this exhibition, and Bessie was there, John Pertwee's car. But it was this ramshackle exhibition. And I think, I'm not exaggerating, I think it was going to close like on the Monday. And it was just weird, random collections, Colin Baker's coat, John Pertwee's trousers. It was fly blown and rather sad. And there were like 6 people going through with these kids. And I just thought, it's the end. But the moment hasn't been prepared for. And I was just I thought, well, this, it's an amazing run, but this must be it now. And then I think and then the news came about 3 months later. But the beginning of all that was just head-spinningly thrilling. The idea of what it might be, what a new version could be, what Russell would do, and then getting the call, which was Christmas 2003, it must have been, from Russell. And I definitely I think I'd been sent an outline, and episode 3 was called The Name's Dickens, Charles Dickens. and he asked me to do that. And it was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And, what is genuinely, at this distance, interests me, intrigues me, is that I suppose in your head, and this is always the way, in my head, somehow or other, we were going to be doing it like The Curse of Peladon. And it's a brand new show, and that's what you have to get used to. And for all the nostalgia inside you, and that's what Russell did so utterly brilliantly, was going, here's a big break from the past. The Doctor's the last of the Time Lords. No one knows what's happened. Deal with it. And for a brand new audience, that's what you want. That's what you do now. Whatever's going to happen, you just need to have a fire break. Find a brand new audience. Start again. Who knows? Why not?
Yeah.
The numbering's all fucked. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Of course it doesn't matter. Why should it? Superman had the crisis of infinite worlds thousands of years ago, didn't it? It's like, it's fine. It's a multiverse. If you want to explain it, that's what we sit in dark rooms for. But for the mass audience, it doesn't matter. 2 pins. Absolutely doesn't. Someone turns up, there's a man in a junkyard with a blue box. That's it. So that was the prospect. That's what we were looking at, and that's what was so thrilling. What I do remember, funny you mentioned, I've just remembered, Russell took me and Stephen and Rob Shearman and Paul Cornell out for an Indian. It was called the restaurant was called the Chula, which I think is referenced, isn't it?
In The Empty Child, yeah.
And Stephen had a drink, and he pitched this story for The Empty Child, which was not at all the story that it became. I remember that very well. The Doctor was dead in it, in a as I remember, in a kind of in a like Frozen or something, or he was in a funeral home. It all took place in a massive flashback or something like that. And I remember thinking, and then he said the next day, Russell says he doesn't like it at all. But then, because Stephen's a genius, he just reinvented it on the spot.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten all about that, but I do remember that distinctly. There was a night when we were just high on the thing of it,
And so he just pitched that on. He had that story in the back of his mind, and he pitched it on the spot.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever revisited that. The Doctor being, well, I mean, he's killed off the Doctor, or maybe killed off the Doctor a number of times.
I can't remember. I remember something about it being sort of in flashback, but it was a long time ago. We were very, very drunk.
Well, with the Unquiet Dead thing, so because when Stephen was on, he was talking about how Russell essentially gave him an outline, a brief for The Empty Child, which he then ran with and made it his own. And was it a similar thing with you and Unquiet Dead? Was it they gave you an outline?
Yes, there was a sort of thing about, I remember from that original brief, there was an outline about Dickens going, I'm not sure if going to Cardiff was part of it, probably was. There was certainly something about the monster being in the walls. I don't know whether it's something about Medium. I can't remember. I've got it somewhere. I should have. I know I've become one of those hateful people who says, I have a recording of it somewhere. And then everybody else salivates and then they fail to find it. But I do have that. Someone will have it. Russell will have it. But I was sort of largely left to my own devices initially. And then, the truth is, it's like, as I say, it's like you're suddenly making a new program and you have to think about what that's going to be. And happily it worked, but we know now for on these incredible retrospective things like Michael Gray tried to get it cancelled again. I remember when he was announced as coming back, my heart skipped a beat. But it turns out it was true. My God, that man.
Worse than Davros.
But the wonderful thing is, it just caught the popular imagination, but then, in a way, you're strapped to this beast, which now has to be fed, And remember, the great Terrence Dicks, once being asked about the minutiae of some story, and he just said, listen, we were just glad it got on. And there is an aspect of that. You're pouring your heart and soul into it, but it's a story machine. It eats story, and you're doing 10, 12, 13, 14 of them, or Russell or Stephen being in charge of the whole behemoth. And so you have to regard it as a job. But within that, of course, the core of you is always just still 8 and thrilled to bits. Like, I've never lost that, and I don't think any of us have in that sense. It's come close because it's hard, and you sort of pummeled to death with a Dalek sucker, as it were, that some people come close to losing the love. But at its heart, it's like the sacred flame of Khan, isn't it?
Well, I hope this doesn't test your minutiae knowledge too much, but there's always been something with the Unquiet Dead that as a fan, I've always been fascinated about, which because I know that with that first series, there was a lot of, Russell sounded like he was very focused on getting those scripts like as good as we could get them, because this could be our only shot at the show, bringing it back. And with the Unquiet Dead, am I right in saying that there was a scene originally, again, minutiae here, so apologies, but there was a scene where the Doctor took Rose, so the whole conceit being that the Gelf sort of possess these gaseous aliens are possessing corpses and basically rendering them as zombies. And there was a scene where the Doctor takes Rose to the future to show her like that this is what happens if we don't stop this. And you see,
yes, there was, and it was Russell specifically requested basically the Pyramids of Mars thing for exactly the same reason, which is for a new audience who are asking, well, we know that didn't happen, which is what Sarah asks in Pyramids of Mars. And then the Doctor shows her what the world would be like if Sutekh wins. And then it was written but never shot, I think, just because there was too much going on. But a lot of the early discussions were very much around reinventing. The reason I remember getting the writer's original brief and the fact that the Autons were coming through the shop window, I was really surprised that Russell, for the first story, was remaking, the most famous bit of Spearhead from Space. But then you think, well, of course he is, because it's brilliant and it's the best bit. So why not do it? Now you can actually smash the windows. There's a lot of that, as I recall, about. And you're absolutely right. It very much could have been the only shot. I know that Russell fought to keep the Daleks back for the middle of the season. The BBC were desperate. It's like, start with everything, And it's like, no, you get a second opening night, and it absolutely worked. Of course it did. By that stage, it was an amazing thing to look forward to. But the understandable kind of nervousness and panic, and no money. I mean, none really comparison. So it's a miracle, really, it ever happened.
Yeah, but hey, it did, and
it did.
You all pulled it off. And I've always just been fascinated by the idea that, like, because that sounded like such a bleak thing to show on a kids' program, like a future like ruled by these horrible gaseous zombies. I always read about that. I was thinking, God, and knowing obviously your sort of pedigree for like writing the macabre and like the creepy, but also the funny as well. Like, how you would have done that would have just been so. I was always fascinated.
I think I remember it was very like it was. They didn't arrive. they arrived in the future, and the Gelf or the zombies were crowding the scanner screen, like in the old TARDIS. No, it was like that. It was like no room. There's no room. It's just full of the dead. Oh. I can't remember.
You mentioned the Daleks. I mean, it's funny, that leads me quite nicely into another bit of minutia, forgive me, but the nerd, the Whovian minutia. But one of my personal favorite episodes that you wrote which is much later after Unquiet Dead, is Victory of the Daleks. Okay. I've always had a soft spot for that episode. It's so much fun, and it's so playful and adventurous with this setting of Winston Churchill in World War II fighting the Daleks. And in that episode, you and Stephen introduced the new paradigm Daleks, which were quite controversial at the time. But these big new bulky Daleks, which were different colours. You had yellow, you had blue, you had red. And I actually have at home, I have a little blue one because I love the little blue, I think scientist or whichever one it is. But I loved those Daleks when I was a kid watching that episode.
Oh, that's interesting.
I feel like I was maybe one of the few who loved them.
Definitely.
But with that, I want to say, I remember watching an interview of you, I think it was Doctor Who Confidential, and you said that there was a whole plan for those Daleks. Like they each had their own roles, they had identities. You had like the Supreme, the main one, you had scientist and strategist. Again, nerd alert, but like you had a whole sort of plan for those. Is that right? There was a schematic for what those.
Well, they were meant to, be the new ones, but it just didn't work. To be frank, I was full of disquiet, and I should have said something. I don't know whether anything would have happened, but they've never really been redesigned. The 2005 version is this fantastic kind of brassy uplift. But I was worried about that hump, and I thought, what I really wanted was the size of the ones in the Peter Cushing movies are just bigger and bolder. And its colours, against everything I was saying earlier about the world becoming colourless, there was something rather lovely about it, and a kind of like bubblegum quality to them, which we all thought kids would like. But, it just didn't work. So you live and learn. And they've become this sort of collector's delight in that sense. And they have popped up occasionally, but they're like a sort of aberration. But it was a funny thing that. And I suppose just law of diminishing returns. I remember the Radio Times did another Vote Dalek cover, and it was like, it just felt a bit it was second hand, When they did that, it was the first flush of it coming back, and the Daleks on Westminster Bridge again, and then like 2 or 3 years later doing it again, it felt like, well, we've seen this, and I suppose that's the problem with success, and bringing something back like that, but. I'm very fond of the story. They work within the context of them being this new thing. I do remember very vividly. I went into a dub, and when they're first revealed, and I think the Dalek Supreme named them as they came out, and I said, "This sounds like Miss World." I really don't think this. It's like wearing a fetching off the shoulder number. Scientist, or like stars in their eyes, I think that's where we took off the voiceover. Could be wrong, but it's. But I really enjoy. I love the thing of it. I loved Professor Bracewell and the kind of poignancy of that, and also just this sort of the fun of it. As I said, to me it's like a bank holiday Doctor Who. It's Spitfires in space, and I remember the read through when it got to the bit. With the Spitfires, and Stephen went, "This is television."
Well, of course, you were playing one of the RF pilots. In Spitfire,
I was forced into that.
Yeah, well, that was. Were you not originally lined up for that?
I think I was just at the dub, and they asked me if I'd do it. I said, "Of course, I'll do it." Any excuse to be a Doctor Who 38 times.
Well, you've acted in Doctor Who multiple times. You were playing Brigadiers.
Well, I remember my first meeting proper. About the Unquiet Dead. Because it was like everything at once. It was a place called Centre House, opposite TV Centre, which is now gone. It was a condemned building for so long; it outlasted almost everything, but it's finally gone. And I said to Russell, "I've got to be in it as well." And he said, "Oh, we'll find something for you." But everyone desperate. This might be it. And then when I got the call to do the Lazarus Experiment, that was the next best day of my life. And my agent had just left, and I inherited David Tennant's agent, and I was in the back of a cab, and the phone rang, and she said, "Darling, do you want to go to Cardiff to do Doctor Who?" And I leaned over and said, "Don't crash this car." And the last day of shooting was my 40th birthday, and I couldn't believe it. But I think I've said this many times, but it's the same thing as working on the show. I'd thought of nothing else since I was a child, and it was actually happening. But I've known David for years. I knew almost everyone involved. And then you got to go. There's a call sheet, there's a trailer. It's like any other job. And you're sort of waiting for something to hit, which makes it feel like the Curse of Peladon. You're going, oh, I'm in Doctor Who. This is Doctor Who, isn't it? What's happening? But I'm here. But and then amazingly, it hit me. The Saturday nightness of it hit me when I'm in the Lazarus machine, and they had to fill it up with dry ice like Martin Sheen in Apocalypse Now. And the first assistant director said, "I'm going to have to shut you in, Mark, so it can fill up." And the door shut. We're in the middle of the Senate building in Wales, in Cardiff. And I was alone in my tuxedo and the mist rising. And I suddenly thought, fucking hell, I'm in Doctor Who. It's true. And when I burst out, that's me going, fucking hell, I'm in Doctor Who.
I remember that. I am reborn.
Yeah,
the energy of that.
felt it.
Yeah. Fantastic. And you play, in some ways, it couldn't be a more Mark Gatiss episode and role. You're playing essentially, it's a horror movie, that episode of 45 minutes.
I think it was pitched as like an Avengers comic kind of plot, you know. What I do, my favourite memory about the whole thing, though, was, this is absolutely true. When I was first offered it and sent the script, it said, Lazarus enters the machine, a blonde Adonis. No, Lazarus emerges from the machine, a blonde Adonis. And I said yes, and then I got the next draft, and it said, Lazarus emerges from the machine. It's true.
Stephen Greenhorn and Russell. You mentioned Curse of Peladon there. I mean, I feel like you've mentioned it, like your love for the classic series. Is that your favourite classic episode?
No, The Green Death is my favourite classic. Oh, okay. All kinds of reasons. But I'm very, I think, I can say this now because I'm 108, but I think, well, we've all got Arrested Development, right, boys? And acknowledging it is a huge part of being at peace with it. But you've also, I think, got to let things go. I think Doctor Who that I worship is forever in the past. Doctor Who that I've worked on and love is a separate thing in my head. And I think trying to bind the two together is probably not very healthy for one's mental health, And I love that about it, really. I'm fine with it. I've got, I used to obsessively collect the Target books, obviously I was a shrine when I was the right age. Now I've framed my favourite covers for the loo, and that's where they belong. I won't read them again because I'm not 8. But what they mean to me is every time I look at them, they make me feel happy, and that's what old Doctor Who does. But my job on it and all our jobs on it, totally separate thing, I think, for me. Obviously, always having that thread to the past, but the thing I enjoyed most about doing Doctor Who was trying to do something new. And obviously, there's, I bring back old monsters, we all do, but it's that thing of like what we all responded to back in the day when Philip Hinchcliffe took over, and the Crinoids and the Zygons and the Wirren, brand new monsters, and even the Daleks totally reinvented. And that boldness is what I really responded to. And I sort of surprised myself in that, thinking I was a prisoner of nostalgia, but pushing it forward, doing things like having no titles in Sleep No More. But that's because I remember, when you look back and see the War Games titles or or Inferno and go, it's different this one, And what is essential is to try and make something which the next generation will find nostalgic when they're older.
Yeah.
Not being totally a prisoner of the past, because it's a good title. Prisoner of the Past. Doctor Who and the Prisoner of the Past.
So do you think that boldness and that sort of that sense of that youthful spirit of like reinvention is something that is key to the show's success? Because when Stephen came on, we asked him about I think you even mentioned it earlier about what the show might need next, whether a complete new refresh like you guys had in 2005. I mean, you were continuing on with the Ninth Doctor, but it was for a new generation. And do you think now moving forward, is that something that the show needs moving forward next?
Personally, I think it should stop.
Really?
I think it should rest for a good while because I don't think there's the will. I mean, I could be totally wrong. You're only as good as your last success. So if it could come back massively strongly and all this evaporates. But I just feel like there's a reason why that gap after it was originally cancelled and it had a brief one night only. Yeah. But that length of time somehow meant people really missed it. Those who remembered it really missed it. Those who never heard of it, it was their show. And somehow you need a bit of a space. I don't know how long, but it's happening anyway, isn't it? Yeah. How long it goes on, I don't know. But personally, but then if and when, and having come back once, I think it will come back. Why wouldn't it? Because it's a classic idea. It's a brilliant concept. But then absolutely divest yourself of any baggage. Start again. It's simple. And it doesn't, as I say, it's for us in dark rooms to try and sew it together. What's always massively intrigued me about Doctor Who fans, myself included, is how some stuff is absolutely holy writ and other stuff is like this, right? So the Doctor can regenerate 12 times 13 physical forms. The fact that there were other doctors before William Hartnell, definitely what Morbius is talking about, didn't happen. The Doctor's half human on his mother's side. No, he's not. Why is this holy writ and this one is like, no, I don't want to hear that. But it's true, isn't it? So if when Dallas came back, to use a strange example, the last episode of Dallas, Larry Hagman is visited by a strange man played by Joel Grey, who turns out to be the devil. It's like a strange version of It's a Wonderful Life, where he shows him life without him, where Cliff becomes president and all these things. And then he turns out to be the devil at the end, and it ends with a bang of JR shooting himself. That's the end of Dallas. It came back 15, 20 years later, and JR says, I saw a lot of crazy shit that night. Because he'd been drinking, So in the future, if someone wants to explain why the Doctor turns into Billy Piper, it's easy. But equally easy is not to bother. Because it doesn't really matter. Of course it doesn't. There's always an explanation. I've already thought of 18 of them. But the crucial thing, and the reason why the TV movie stumbles immediately, is they try and make it for all the audiences at once, whereas the crucial audience was the brand new audience. You start an episode of Doctor Who inside the TARDIS talking about the Master and the Daleks. Lost. Why would you not be? But again, going back to the brilliance of that first episode, 2005, Billie Piper runs in. We don't see anything. We see her face. She runs around the police box to show us how big it is. And then we go in. Job done. Yeah. Brilliant. How to do it. So that's what I would do, is start again. And, shrug it all off. And I remember, Russell, at the press launch of season 1, and we showed clips from Rose, and it had the Tom Baker titles on it. It wasn't even ready. I remember that distinctly. But he did a little speech, and he said, basically, after a show, any show's been on for 26 years, it will acquire a lot of baggage. And when a show has been back for 21 years, it will do exactly the same thing. So the key is to capture an audience who've never heard of it. If you get people along the way who remember it, for whom David or Peter or Jodie or whoever were their doctor, great. And if you get people way back who remember Tom Baker, even better, because then you've got the whole lot. But crucially, my favourite thing about, I think, my entire time working on Doctor Who was going to a friend's wedding just after Robot as Sherwood had been on, and two little boys having a spoon fight because of it. And I thought, that's all I ever wanted, was to inspire someone in the playground, really.
Well, Stephen was talking about that exact thing when we asked when we asked him about The Empty Child, and he said the "Are You My Mummy" was exactly that for him. Yeah, hearing kids in the playground saying "Are you my mummy" all over the place was so it sounds like he had a similar moment.
Well, that means what all you can hope for. I also remember going on Radio 4 to defend the scariness of the Unquiet Dead. And Eddie Mayer it was, and he said, how do you react to this? I said, well, I'm thrilled. My job's done. That's of course it is. You telling me that I've scared the nation with Doctor Who? Then that's good.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Well, I can attest that you said that. Another great project of yours that has such a huge love and following is, of course, Sherlock.
I thought we were only talking about Doctor Who. I mean, it's been at least the first 10 hours.
Well, don't get me wrong, we could just make this about it too, but I mean, the other great work you've done as well. I mean, with Sherlock, which of course we talked about with Stephen as well when he came on the pod. As I say, that is such a following, and you have such a role in the development, the creation, and the writing, but also, of course, the presentation. You are Mycroft in that show, Sherlock's brother. When I have interest, when did you realise when you were creating that show with Stephen and I guess Steve Thompson as well? Did you realise that you wanted to play Mycroft? Like Mycroft was going to be your part?
It was a funny thing. I had recently auditioned to play Peter Mandelson, and we talked explicitly about how Mandelsonian Mycroft was as a figure. The power behind the throne, and I played a lot of those kind of parts, and then we were having a script meeting somewhere, and I think I think Stephen just said, "Why don't you do it?" And I definitely remember, like Richard III refusing the crown, just going, "I couldn't possibly," and made the mask again and again, and then it just sort of happened. So it was cheaper. No, that's genuinely how it happened. And then, but because we were so inspired by Billy Wilder's Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which is our template really in so many ways, tonally, but particularly about the relationship between the two brothers being much more antagonistic than it is in the stories, and also Mycroft not being obese in that one. That, I don't know, it just seemed like a natural thing to do. It's funny, isn't it? I often think about who it might have been if it wasn't me. Because we never really got that far. It's curious. I mean, obviously, as you know, we made a sort of pilot, which wasn't officially a pilot. We just when the BBC said yes, the easiest pitch in the history of television, Julie Gardner, modern Sherlock Holmes, yes, she said, and that was that. But we had the last pot of money for the year. We made it. And then when it was then commissioned properly, and we were in a script meeting on possibly the read-through of Victory of the Daleks, when the call came through from Sue Virtue saying they'll say yes if we do 390s, and we said yes, and that was because Wallander was in that form, so that's why that was the format, because that worked, and then rethinking the first one, expanding it, and bringing in Mycroft as part of that was the thinking. So, funny.
Yeah, but because when in Study in Pink, when you go back and look at it, you realise that there's a whole little ploy there, bait and switch, where you think Mycroft could be more.
Well, I'm not credited specifically because it would be published in advance and it would ruin the joke, and I can't bear that. So I wasn't credited at all. So that I even say he possibly regards me as his arch enemy. Yeah, it's ridiculous like that. Things people never really say.
Yeah,
but and then it's a surprise, and then start talking about our mummy, and then off we go.
And John's just like what the fuck is going on? and I did want to zone in on that actually, if I may, because you're there with Benedict, of course, playing Sherlock, and Martin playing John so brilliantly, and there's obviously incredible chemistry between them two. But then the three of you, I mean, across the 4 seasons of Sherlock, you and Stephen explored that dynamic, and with the other characters as well. But you explored that little trio so well. I mean, leading all the way up to the last episode. And when you look back now, like, what are your memories of working specifically with those two, with Benedict and Martin, and what their energies were? Because they strike me as being quite different as actors.
Well, I was very drunk throughout. So no, yeah, they are very different approaches, you know. But it was very it was a very combustible show, you know what I mean? Because it became like an instant hit. And I've often said this, but it's the sort of thing that's not supposed to happen, you know. But we watched Benedict become a star overnight. It was like a supernova. It was like, and it just happened. And suddenly there were only 3 of them, and everyone was going, "Where's the rest of it?" And you have to wait ages, you know. And we were supposed to be on in the September. We had a Radio Times cover, and then they pulled it forward to the summer. Traditionally a death slot. And then it got 10 million viewers, and everything changed. All the rules, nobody knows anything. Everything changed, and suddenly they were desperate for more, and we were, you know, more than recommissioned. It was like, this is a thing, and it was giddying. Of course it was, straight away. And you're thinking, well, what do we do now? We've got to carry on and embrace the scale of this thing. But yes, it was very hard work because of that. Not really external pressure, just the fact that you're kind of, as it's like being strapped to a sort of waltzer. Or it's like, off we go. And waltzers go round and round. I meant a roller coaster. And that, particularly around the Reichenbach fall, and that was an extraordinary time. You know, pinch me time of, like, you know, being nostalgic for the moment you're in, because you're aware this is not going to happen again. And we deliberately lied about whether it was coming back, so that everyone could get to the end, Benedict falling off the building and then appearing at the graveside. And we were watching it at Martin's house, and our phones just went crazy. And then we would go, of course it's coming back, you know. But that period when people were speculating was kind of my favourite bit, because we hadn't done anything to address it, but it was just the world was talking about it. It was the closest to what must have happened to Conan Doyle, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a wonderful thing, life changing. But same with Doctor Who. It's also hard work and a job, and I don't want to sound at all pejorative about that, because Christ, literally all I ever wanted as a kid was to work on Doctor Who and work on Sherlock Holmes. But it's a lot of stuff, a lot of tough decisions, hard work, and Benedict and Martin were both really extraordinary leading men to have on that show, and world beating, I would say, you know. And it worked, you know. And I think I've often said this, but sometimes all the planets align. As William Goldman said, nobody knows anything. You could spend your life trying to push a catchphrase or a notion of or a vision of something, and people just aren't interested. But somehow or other, at that moment, everything was right. And when we were doing the pilot, I was so depressed that Robert Downey Jr. was about to do the film. It was announced while we were doing the pilot, and there hadn't been a Sherlock Holmes for donkey's years. And I went, oh, not now. And I thought, and then I thought, it doesn't matter. And of course it doesn't matter, because your version is your version. People respond to it or they don't. And they really, as we know, the world went kind of crazy for it.
I remember it well. I was I was one of the fans, yeah. And what do you think was, because I hear everything you say about how it was fantastic, but it was hard work. I mean, what was the hardest thing about making Sherlock for you?
I guess it wasn't, well, first of all, it was kind of getting people to buy into the concept, which to us seemed very straightforward because Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce had already done it. But I do remember a screening of the first one, literally overhearing a journalist saying, well, we've got to say something bad about it. Isn't that awful? Like they were trying to find, it was like, this is really good. What dirt can we find on it? But after people got it, as soon as they saw it, they got it. And when we were talking about it, somehow or other, they struggled, you know, to the ludicrous extent that when we did the Christmas Victorian one, the show within the show, literally someone from the press said, how can Sherlock Holmes exist in a world without iPhones? And I went, we're through the looking glass here. do you remember? But it obviously meant we'd done something right. But initially it was that. And then as it's a proof of concept was the show. And then people totally bought into it, that essentially it was a flat share between two young men, one of whom is a genius, who live above a cafe and solve crimes, you know. And then I guess something of the kind of pressure of expectation, inevitably. I would say, being honest, I think we probably shouldn't have killed Moriarty so early, because we ended up bringing back poor Andrew so many times in virtual forms. But it's a bit like the first season of Doctor Who. You kind of go, let's not delay the pleasure. Let's just do the big ones right now. And there is a lot of virtue in that. It just means that your sort of shelf life is shorter, because where do you go after that? So possibly we but they were film, you know, they were movie length, and they're big beasts. That's what was the hard word. They're big beasts to try and tackle. You're not talking about half an hour or an hour even. It's 6 hours is a very different prospect to 390s. So you're thinking on a bigger scale, even if you haven't got the money for it. You're thinking more like epic in terms of storyline and what big thing could happen. I do remember, this is so depressing, one review saying, why can't it be more ordinary? And I thought, what a lofty ambition that is. By which they meant, why can't it be, you know, case of the week? Someone comes in with and that is Sherlock Holmes. But look, we were lucky to have the keys to Baker Street for a bit, and that was our version. You know, and people largely loved it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And but that did make me that does make me curious to ask, like, what would you, if you were to revisit Sherlock again, which people have, I mean, Stephen even was talking about it to us. He said that he'd love to go back. I mean, if you were to revisit Sherlock, what do you think you'd do differently?
I think I'd start in a junkyard. Oh no.
Totter's Lane.
What would you do differently? I don't know. Well, I know it would be in a similar way. You just, I always used to joke that, you know, having done the thing which is in the first story of Doyle, which is never really done, which is they're men in their 30s who share a flat. But what we mostly see them as is middle-aged men, very stolid, or more stolid seeming, that if you were to go back, all you do is a knock on the door. Dr. Watson hasn't seen his friend for 20 years. And he says, do you want to come out to play? That's really it. Because what you would be doing is representing it again for a brand new audience, just as with Doctor Who. Now, again, if you're lucky, if you were to do it, you'd have a lot of people who love the show. But now, if we did it, it's 10 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's 10 years.
Yeah.
So, or nearly 10 years. So, you know, telly moves on, people move on. So if you were to do it, you would be necessarily addressing a new audience, and that's completely correct. Why should you be bothered by any of the continuity? You don't even have to make a mistake. You just have to not mention it.
Well, Stephen was saying that he would, that exact thing, that he would, if he would love to do it again, and he would love to bring them back as their middle-aged versions and explore that side of their lives.
Well, we'd have no choice there, unless we uneuthified them.
the Irishman style.
Yeah. My favourite that was I caught a bit of. Is it X-Men Last Stand, where Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen were done?
Yes,
and they look like eggs. It's just totally smooth. No one had any wrinkles in the past.
At the beginning, where they're visiting Jean Grey, I want to say, I think Paul Patrick had that twice in X-Men Origins Wolverine as well. He comes in for a cameo, and they did the exact same thing. Right. You know, it's just, it's the way of the future, isn't it? I saw ABBA Voyage yesterday, and it's exactly the same with the.
Great though, isn't it?
Have you been to see it?
I've seen it 3 times. It's Voyage, by the way, not Voyage.
It's a Voyage. We've been calling it Voyage.
It's just Voyage.
It's just Voyage.
I tell you what, my partner is an obsessive ABBA fan. He was there on opening night when they come on and then they really come on.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the best night of his life. He missed my press night for it. But what really impressed me, first of all, it's a fantastic show. As a light show, it makes you feel 100% better. And even though some of the CG is still a bit uncanny valley, you can see some of them are early now and some of the later ones much better. But what is really remarkable is the impression that the band is right in front of you. I don't mean that band because I know they're real. Yeah. When they rise up, I just kept going, look, but they're there. My mother-in-law has a friend, genuinely, who thinks that they come on at the end after every show. And we entertain ourselves with the idea that they're in a travel lodge in Stratford going, come on then. Just a wave.
Yeah, smile and wave.
Come on, Bjorn.
No, it was amazing.
It was amazing, yeah.
And the first 10 minutes you spend getting used to it, but then you lock in and it's just great. And obviously when they do Waterloo and all those songs, just absolutely loved it. But
they don't do. My mother-in-law, though, bless her, absolutely cannot grasp what's going on. She can't. The latest was, she said something like, where did they hang their costumes? And then the latest was, are they puppets? They were robots, or are they puppets? I think it's just somehow generationally she can't work out how it's done. Nor can I. I think it's magic. Is it magic?
One last question on Sherlock. I want to say that, am I right in thinking that after series 4 had wrapped and sometime around lockdown, you and Stephen pitched Benedict Martin a Sherlock film? Is that right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah. What would that have looked like? A Sherlock film?
I can't tell you that. Guess we ever do. It didn't happen, various reasons. It didn't happen. I mean, mostly it's availability and trying to get everyone, all our ducks in order. But also because it was lockdown. Everyone was desperate for news and something to plan, I suppose. It was good. It wasn't very formed, as I remember. It was just more enthusiasm than story. But never say never, as Sean Connery said.
I mean, the fact that, as you say, like you were making 3 films a series, so like they're doing like a bigger budget one of those, I guess, would have been the conceit.
Not really, no. I mean, if anything, because the great, cliches, they all go on holiday to Spain. It tends to be the fate of the spin-off film, isn't it? In order to get scale. I don't know. It wasn't really that at all. It was more internal. But I don't know. You'll have to see. We'll all have to see.
Let's see.
See if we survive this fucking summer without being fried, personally. I'm not at all sure we will. It's nice to have things to be ambitious about.
And I mean, touching on some of the other stuff you've done, I mean, you've done so much speaking of scale, like you've worked on so many huge scale things. I mean, I think one would of course be Game of Thrones, which I think was around the same time as Sherlock. You came in for a few episodes. I mean, now that that's sort of in the rearview mirror as well, like what are your memories of working on Game of Thrones?
I can tell you something. I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but I'll say it now. I have never seen Game of Thrones.
You've never seen it?
And I deliberately, when I was off the part, I deliberately didn't watch it. I hadn't seen it, and I deliberately didn't watch it because, this is a Doctor Who thing, I grew up reading interviews with wonderful old actors who had very vague memories of the pub that Tom Baker had taken them to. And they'd say things like, I think I was in Revenge of the Daleks. And we had a lovely time. I didn't understand a word of it, but it was such fun. And I thought, I'd love to have something like that in my life, where I have no actual emotional connection to it. And that is what I did with Game of Thrones. I did 4 or 5 episodes. I had a lovely time with everyone involved, but I had no idea what any of it's about, apart from, through osmosis. And I do remember going to, actually, no, I've seen one episode because I went to see, there was a premiere at the Tower of London. It's the only one I've ever seen. And on the red carpet, they kept saying, who should be on the Iron Throne? And I blanked and I went, me. Because I was the only character I knew. That's true.
That's fabulous.
And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to binge watch it when nobody else is watching it. And when it gets to the end, I'll be very disappointed, obviously, because I know that's what happened.
But you were working with like Liam Cunningham and Stephen DeLay. I mean, great actors. I mean, Cunningham you'd worked with in Cold War, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what were your memories of working with those guys?
I remember arriving in Belfast and land of my fathers. And I've known Liam on and off for years. But I remember it was a very long process. That first Iron Bank scene. And I think we shot every conceivable way short of an endoscope down the throat. It was like, I can't believe. But we were all, by the end, we couldn't remember it. I remember Liam or Stephen sitting behind the camera with the script because we'd done it so many times it starts to become like a word salad. And then Liam said, "Did you see that scene?" And I saw him next. He said it was like a master 2 bids at a close up. Of course it was. That's how television works. But it was great. It was lovely to be part of it, there was such a currency at the time. I remember going to LA to promote Invention, Space and Time with David Bradley, and the Red Wedding episode had just been on, and David was like a king. He got off the plane, people were mobbing him because it was so much. I love that. It's lovely excitement about it. But I know nothing about it.
That machinery, I guess you were sort of present for that machinery of that.
Yeah, I remember very well. In the first episode I did, there were, on a unit, a set, there's so many white vans, and Game of Thrones was so huge. There were different units, like Wolf Unit, and in Ireland, hair and makeup are separate units, and I was led to this caravan to have my coif put on or whatever, and then I said, I'll make my own way back, and I got so lost that I walked onto another episode. I thought, I don't know, who are these people? And I realised I was in a totally different unit. It was a vast thing. I went to Croatia for one, the one with Lena Headey, which we had such a laugh that day. Yeah, it was delightful. But as I say that, now I can do it now, I can say.
Yeah.
I remember such fun. And it was all a lot of nonsense.
The Gielgud song, I remember back in the day. Well, was it a similar thing walking onto a set like something like Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, of course? I mean, maybe a different kind of scale, but still huge. And you're walking on there and it's Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie. I mean, what was that like?
Terrifying. But first one, Dead Reckoning, I did a week on that one, and I was so scared that the script was very late and it was all technobabble. It was really hard to learn. I remember I learned it like word pictures because some of it was so... Anyway, you arrive and it's like Bond, it's vast machine, but they couldn't have been more delightful and friendly. And then I saw Indira Varma across the room, and neither of us knew we were in it. And she looked at me and went, "Oh," and we kind of clung to each other, and we were so in awe of the other American actors who were like blue steel, American intensity. And then within 24 hours, you realise they're shitting themselves as well. And then it sort of goes, is anyone here not shitting themselves? Oh, it's Tom. And then it was just wonderful, and we had such a. Again, it's intense stuff. That was one big scene. We were gassed, and there was one. I remember. I've never seen this before. There was a very high camera. The clapperboard was like something from the Odyssey. It was like Polyphemus's clapperboard. It was this huge clapperboard. I've never seen anything like it. Like a joke clapperboard. But we had a brilliant time, and McHugh, as he's known, and Tom just. Great, and it. I know I've said this many times, but you do get so used to it, and then every now and then, a bit like going, "Oh, I'm in Doctor Who." You just kind of go, it doesn't make sense. It's like he's come to life,
Yeah.
And then I did the second one, which I was on for a month, and again round a table, lots of chat. and it was very hot. But Nick Offerman has become a very good friend of mine, and Janet McTeer I've known for years. So he was full of friends. And the reassuring thing is, yet again, in the end, it's a job. And just what you've got to, with that, you've got to screen out the scale of it because it would drive you crazy. But amazing to be a small part of the Mission Impossible machine. I really, really enjoyed it. And seeing all that up close, I suppose, the scale of that kind of thing. Particularly remember on the first one, Chris McQuarrie had an idea about the opening, because nothing was shot in order or even written. And on day 2, Tom said something about Russian submarines. And by day 3, they were building them. And he literally came and showed me a picture. But that was an idea on Monday. And there they were. Extraordinary kind of pharaonic production.
Well, he should have come straight to you because, of course, Cold War being there.
Yeah, he could have had mine.
He said, like, Tom, this is how you do a submarine. This is how you do a base under siege.
You need a Russian submarine, yeah.
Put an ice warrior in there and you're off to the races. Do you remember those conversations you would have? Did you have many with Tom and McHugh on the set when you were making that film about the film itself?
Yeah, also. I mean, I tell you, this is my favourite thing. I've said that so many times, but it was a delightful experience. Once we were through the nerves, it was joyous. And then you do become like, my God, it's Mission Impossible. This is incredible. Who'd have thought it? But the best thing was, the only one I hadn't seen was 3, weirdly, with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And we started on the Monday. On the Sunday, I watched 3, which I enjoyed very much. And then when we were chatting, the first day of filming, or maybe the second day, Tom Cruise said, basically, they said, this is the summation of all of them. Henry Ciani was back from the first one. It's going to have an element of all of the Mission films. And he said, and there's a MacGuffin in the third one. And I went, the rabbit's foot. And he went, yeah. And I only knew that because I'd literally just watched the night before. I look like, I know these films very well. But my God, he's such a funny man. And he's been in part of our cinema lives since I was 14. And it's incredible to think who he's worked with. Paul Newman, and all these astonishing directors, and he's the last movie star in a way, That's something incredible about that, really. One of my favorites from the second one was Tom. He turned 60 on the set, and we were told to assemble in the war room, the Strangelove war room. At lunchtime, secretly, everybody came down quietly. And it had the DEFCON sign, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, DEFCON 5 to 1. And there was a young lad playing a Marine in it. And because it's showbiz, he had one line, Madam President, for Angela Bassett, which was cut. But he was a lovely lad. It was his first job out of drama school. And he was so skinny in his uniform, like a thumb in a uniform, with that redness that only young men have about 19, sort of blush. He was lovely, but like overwhelmed by it all. And we all crept down at lunchtime. Then Tom was led from his trailer into darkness. And then all the lights came on, balloons fell, the DEFCON sign started flashing like a disco, and Angela Bassett came out of the shadows singing, "Happy birthday to you." And I looked at Peter, and I said, it's not always like this, It was the most insane showbiz day. It's like, well, I remember this one.
Wow. Only Tom Cruise of Mission Impossible. Is it true that, because of course another great British player in that series is Simon Pegg, is it true that Simon Pegg showed Tom League of Gentlemen on the set?
I think he said, this is some fucked up shit. Yeah, but he knows it. I mean, it's amazing. He knows who I am. That's ridiculous. And That's I still can't get my head around that sort of thing.
I mean, my favourite of the League of Gentlemen characters you play is Les, creme brulee. It's a shit business, all that. I absolutely
You'll find out.
I watched it in lockdown for the first time, the whole lot, me and my flatmate, the one we did the Bond films with, and that was all we could quote for 18 months. I mean, do you have
still true.
It's still true. I mean, I'm sure you've been asked this before, but do you have a favourite League of Gentlemen character that you played?
It's probably Les or Mickey, I guess.
Yeah.
But I have a great soft spot for Les because it's Jeremy and I. There's a lot of all our favourite stuff is real pathos. I think Alan Bennett's our hero, and it's the two things at once. Hopefully, very funny, but also there's a lot of truth in that, and the reality of that, of living off those memories. And that drawer full of tapes and all that. It's very real, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I love all the Eurovision detail and all that sort of stuff. With Smokey. It's a lost world, that I think, those kind of bands, and I'm very nostalgic for that period. I went through a thing a couple of years ago. I was on a long train journey, and I suddenly remembered how much I loved the New Seekers. When I was a kid, Beg, Steal or Borrow, and I just played it for hours, and it was properly Proustian. It's like someone pushing a button to 1972, and it slightly overwhelmed me because I hadn't thought about them for years. We used to have those Top of the Pops albums, I remember, but it was amazingly powerful. But it's all back to nostalgia, but that's what that is. It's something we all wrestle with, but it's pernicious and it's difficult. I think this country is Britain has a terminal case of nostalgia, and we're trapped in this idea of the past, a golden age we never really had. Everything was better, of course everything was better when anyone was a kid, and but we're in danger of being ruled by people who think that's actually true. And people who think watching The Great Escape on Christmas Day is the same as fighting in the Second World War. And that's where we are. Yeah. It's really deadly.
Yeah, I agree. And even you even talk about that with the League, you guys, when you brought it back. I mean, the whole idea, thesis of that series to me seems to be you can never go back, but you can visit.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Yeah. And then, of course, Les has that moment where spoiler alert for League, the return. But, he has that moment where he's kind of offered. He's made the offer, like, you can come back, you can play again, but then he doesn't take it. And he refuses to go down that path, and he moves into something else. Yeah, it seems to me like, nostalgia is dangerous.
It's a trap. But that was inspired. I saw that amazing documentary, Searching for Sugar Man. And I thought, well, this is Les, isn't it? What if he's big in one country and he doesn't know about it? It's incredible, that story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great.
And they structure the documentary so cleverly so you think he's dead. And then he just goes, hi. Spoilers.
Shit business.
Yeah, that's what he says.
That's what
Except in South Africa.
And that kind of exploration of nostalgia and kind of unpicking it and actually going, okay, what was Britain like? What was the past like? I mean, you could say, I think that's fair to say that's an apt description for Bookish as well a bit, isn't it? Like, the way that Bookish, which season 2 is coming out very soon, the unpicking of kind of Britain's post-war psyche after the war, having gone through that terrible trauma, and then like you're in the dust, and like, where do we go from here? I mean, would you say that's an apt description of what you're doing with Bookish?
I mean, it's a period I've always been fascinated by because it's not much examined. There's an obsession with the war and then the 50s, but those 5 years, most radical government we ever had, and the foundations of the NHS, and a period of extraordinary kind of trauma and optimism, which then, being Britain, never quite worked out. But I just find it really interesting, and to shine a light on that for a book as a gay man in a lavender marriage, but also just the notion of it. There's so many real life cases which I've read about over the years, people who reinvented themselves because they could. They could come back and actually everyone who knew them was gone, and they could just say, oh, well, actually, I had a very good war. And then only 25 years later when they found out, or people who never recovered, or people who you now totally understand the time bomb that it was in terms of youth, because all those teenagers we see in 50s films who are pushing back against their lawnmower pushing colonel fathers, but because the colonels had seen quite enough. And they wanted normality and calm, but you can't transfer that to your own children because they've got the right to do something themselves. But that's what it's about. We've got there's such a sort of cliche of the Cliff Richard's dad kind of, wagging a finger. But what it comes from is trauma and a shattered world. I don't think we can't really grasp it because we weren't there. But even the world I grew up in as a kid, the war was everywhere. I once said to my dad that I'd had his childhood by proxy, because everything he used to go to see in the cinema was on telly on Saturday mornings. Flash Gordon, Will Hay, Tarzan, so all this war stuff. We're obsessed with the war because it's our finest hour. That and the World Cup is all we've got left. And so it's really interesting, I think, to me what that means for the future. And for Bookish, it's an amazing playground for me, because there are lots of big events that happened in those years. The big freeze of 1947, the London Olympics. There's lots of this could be something, couldn't it? And I'm really excited about hopefully continuing to explore that, because it's book and the show is, for me, is a kind of synthesis of almost everything I love: murder mysteries, sci-fi, oddness, grotesquerie, a bit of the supernatural, and the period. So it's lovely. We can almost do anything, I think, within the boundaries, because you can play with stuff, I think, That's my hope.
Yeah, well, it's such a playful show and it's so much fun to watch. And in season 2, you're working with such a great new cast of people like Miranda Richardson, who I've always loved, and Simon Callow, Dickens himself.
Yes.
The name's Dickens, back from the days of the Unquiet Dead, and Rupert Graves, of course, from Sherlock. I mean, what's it been like bringing in this whole new coterie of talent to work with?
Well, delightful, and you. I'm able to use my address book, which always comes in handy for my ghost stories as well. But in contrast, we can actually pay them properly. But it was lovely. Miranda I've been pursuing forever, and we had such a good laugh. She's absolutely marvelous. I was sort of gazing at her in awe, really. Every take's different, and she's so classy. She does this one. There's a line where. So, spoilers, I'm posing in the third story under an assumed name, which is Sebastian Melmoth. And she says, Sebastian Melmoth. Melmoth, it's a book, isn't it? I said, yes, a Gothic classic. And she says, like me. And that was the line. And then she did it, went, like me. Funny. We've kept it. It's just delightful. She's amused by her own joke. It was wonderful. And Jason Watkins and Alan Corduna, Sarah Crowe. It was really lovely. And it's exciting, and it's also welcoming a new cast for each story brings its own energy and everything. So it's really good fun. Hard work again, but it's good work,
Yeah, and we were saying earlier that I think, because I know season 2 was commissioned, I think even before season 1 went out.
Which is amazing and incredibly rare. So it means a huge amount to me that you and Alibi did that, because it's a vote of confidence. It also means we got on with it. If they waited, we probably now be about to shoot the second season, and it's actually ready to go out.
Yeah, and season 3, I want to say, is in the works too.
Christmas special, which we've just finished shooting.
Okay, yes.
And series 3, November to March of next year.
Amazing. So how does it feel to be able to, I guess, you be given money to explore, like I say, this show kind of is synthesis of everything you're interested in, to be able to have that freedom. I mean, it must be amazing.
Well, it's about time. It's delightful. Yeah, delightful. Yeah. And it's, all the usual prerequisites and caveats. It's challenging because it's a lot to the physical time. I mean, mostly shoot in Belgium, so I'm away from home a lot, but I get back at weekends. It's a long haul, and obviously I across everything and co-write it, so it's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's delightful. So it's a shit business. So I mustn't grumble. I'm not. It's really lovely.
I have to ask, because I know that you're a huge horror fan, and have always have been, and that you've presented and written on the subject. Of course, history of horror, which I think for a certain generation or more than one generation was a real big touch point for us when it came to horror films and like the history of horror. Like me and in fact the same friend who I watched League with and Bond,
The imaginary friend.
the imaginary. He was on my shoulder right here. He was. We loved the history of horror documentaries that you presented, and I did want to ask you, as a horror fan, what are your views on modern horror? Like, what do you think the state of horror is?
Very good
Today. Do you think it's
very good?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's horror moves around the world, I think, like a plague, and it's got to some very interesting places. I think it's great. There's tons of horror movies. They never lose money, horror, because it's a great date movie. I think that's the principal reason. But you can do them. There's some marvelously inventive things. Weapons is a brilliant film. What a movie that is. It's on so many levels. It's weird. It's genuinely creepy. It's an incredible central performance, but it's structurally amazing. When Benny Wong suddenly appears in that garage, I think was going, what's going on? Like I was scared by the surprise of it. Never mind anything else. When he smashes his own face in, it's like, oh fuck, this is horrible, but brilliantly inventive. There's a lot of them. I think it's in great shape. So someone will make a documentary about it one day. But it just, I mean, there are so many aspects. We're just talking about the Odyssey, whatever you think, the most brilliant thing is it's got loads of people to the cinema for a big film, a proper movie that is not an easy sell in some ways, but it's just wonderful. That, I mean, you've got to take your hat off to how Christopher Nolan, coming in under budget as he does, remarkably, knows exactly what he wants, and that people come. It's in and of itself, it's a miracle. And I think we're so constantly being told about the splintering of the broadcasting environment or entertainment generally, and then something big happens and everyone goes to see it still. And something big happens on the telly and everyone talks about it. And suddenly The Traitors gets 10 million viewers and everyone goes, oh, television's not dead, So it's thrilling.
This has led me quite nicely into a kind of wrap-up question that we have of people on the podcast, which is their recommendations. So things they might have watched recently that they've really enjoyed, or albums that they've listened to, or books. I mean, you've just reeled off some good films there that you've been checking out, Weapons, of course. But is there anything else that you'd recommend our viewers or listeners? Anything that you've read or maybe
Just started Widow's Bay.
Someone else was talking about Widow's Bay. Who was it, George?
Have you seen it?
We had Ferdinand Kingsley on from Empress of Mars. He came on recently. He was saying Widow's Bay was great.
Have you seen it?
I haven't. I've only seen snippets.
You will enjoy it.
So Widow's Bay is
enjoying that. The Studio.
Seth Rogen.
Really enjoy that. This is a long story. My partner and I have a long-standing tradition of when we're on holiday, we only watch old rotten British sitcoms. It's a strange thing. We just fell into it, and now it's a holiday thing. So we're always trying to find them. This year, we went to Croatia and watched John Inman in Odd Man Out, 1977, which he made between series on I Being Served. It's a very important series to me because it's the thing that Jeremy Dyson and I bonded over trying to remember the title of when we first met on New Year's Eve, 1987. And there was no internet then. We couldn't look it up. And we spent months trying to find out. It's rubbish. There are new things as well I've watched. Totally addicted to The Traitors in all its forms. Have you seen the Australian ones?
I have not seen the Australian
ones. The two Australian ones are the best ones. They are complicated because the host is hateful. They are Australian, and therefore their version of an old castle is from about 1983. But dramaturgically, the story in each of them is absolutely amazing. The twists and the betrayal will make you feel sick. Brilliant. With the Irish one we've just finished is absolutely remarkable. I'd urge you to watch that. We've even started Traitors India because the American one, which we thought was all available, turned out not to be, and we were bereft. We watched 2 in an evening and then suddenly realised we had nowhere to go. That's a long story. What else? Jesus Christ Superstar, one of my favourite musicals, currently triumphant in the Palladium again. I would urge you to see that. Please remind me of some things that have happened since 1950.
Well, we've touched on the Odyssey, Backrooms Obsession, TV. What else? Albums? Did you listen to any music?
No, it's too late for that. It's too late. I'm long gone. Max Richter is about as far as I go.
Well, actually, you're on Edgar Wright Sparks documentary.
Yes.
And they
one line. I'm the one who says he looks like Hitler. Yeah. I said to Edgar, I love them. I had dinner with them, which was thrilling. But I said, I can't pretend I know a lot about them. He said, oh, come and do it. So I did it. And then all that was salvageable was me saying, then this man appeared on top of the pops who looked like Hitler. Thank you.
Well, hey, as far as iconic descriptions of the band, it can't really be bad.
That's apparently what John Lennon said. He rang up
Ringo.
Ringo and said, it's extraordinary.
He said, Mark Bolan's playing a song about Adolf Hitler. Right? That's is that Hitler? Yeah. Amazing. So, Australian Traitors, Widow's Bay Studio, and you've given us a lot there to chew on.
For thought.
Brilliant. Well, hey, this was such a pleasure, Mark. Thank you so much for coming
My
on
pleasure.
Picture. And just you're a fabulous raconteur, just regaling us with all these stories. It's been amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.